Hello, 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 and welcome. Welcome to Created for More, the podcast. As usual, I have an exciting guest with me in the studio today, and I can't wait to get into today's conversation. I've got Chidi Ameke. And Chidi is a business author. He's a keynote speaker who helps purpose driven and ambitious organizations transform. He's also passionate about contributing to an organization's digital and business transformation journey. Chidi he currently serves as vice president of operations risk management at a company that is based in the United Kingdom. He's leading the charge to establish a global supply chain risk management function. If I read all of that and you're thinking, oh wow, this guy is like a proper solid career guy and that's all he does, you are mistaken. You are mistaken. Chidi has a really, really incredible story, which I'm sure he will share parts of. And one of the things I love about just what he's doing now is just how he's, been able to evolve into writing books and all the great things he's done, which is kind of more than just the average. And I thought that it would be good to have a conversation with Chidi today because he is very inspiring. Chidi, you are very inspiring. So it is absolutely brilliant to have you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tombra, for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to see you and to spend some time with you on your brilliant podcast. So I'm hopeful
Oh,
and excited that this will be a rich conversation that your audience will find useful and valuable.
fantastic. And I'm sure it will be. Chidi, I was reading parts of your bio there, just like a little snippet, but the truth is that no one can do it justice in an introduction than the person themselves. So I always ask my guests to introduce themselves. Who is Chidi Ameke and what is the essence of you?
Great question. And so again, thank you for inviting me and thank you for
You're
such a
welcome.
great opening question. So as you said, my name is Chidi Ameke. I'm Nigerian, but British born, established that. And for those who are listening who are Nigerian, I'm from Anambra. I grew up in Onisha at Ajasa Street.
Oh
Right.
wow, you even remember the street.
Yeah. My formative years was quite something, and so I came back to the UK when I was about 9 or 10, and so I schooled in the UK, went to university in the UK, and built my career and family in the UK. And as you rightly say, I've done over my 25-year career to date. I've done lots of different things, and I've acquired a huge amount of knowledge, which I enjoy sharing through my book publications. And I also, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, I work for a supply chain organization, a global supply chain organization, and I am standing up a risk management function to service our global teams. And so that's keeping me really excited and really busy. And I continue to write blogs on the side just to keep my brain ticking as well in various different aspects. And of course, most importantly, focusing on my family and my two sons and my wife to try and build something to leave behind for them so that they can be the best versions of themselves.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I had so much. Had a lot in just that introduction when you talked about, and I feel torn. I feel like I want to go in two directions now. When you talked about keeping your brain ticking, I do a lot of stuff. I do also blogging, and then I will come back to legacy, which was I think it's very important and it's worth exploring. Just certainly from your perspective. So keeping your brain ticking, where did this start for you? Just this idea and the concept that beyond me, Chidi, at work, I can be more, I can do other things.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm going to be really honest because I think it's important for your audience to really get a sense of kind of the innate drivers. I think for me, um, I've always strived to ensure that I'm relevant in my career. right? For me, that's really important. And relevance is for me, the opposite of complacency, right? Complacency is doing something you've always done and you get good at it and you stay comfortable and you hope that you continue to get recognized and rewarded. To me, that's a path of complacency. Keeping my brain active is about challenging myself to learn new things, to make sure I am entering spaces which are current, relevant, and will add value to the organization that I am a part of. And it continues to build my profile in terms of my thought leadership, my current knowledge in terms of current affairs and current, whether it's tools or technologies or best practices, just making sure I'm part of that thought leadership and cutting edge. So that very nature compels me to always be on the quest for knowledge. And then the point I've got to now is not only acquiring knowledge, but it's also about having an opinion and sharing that opinion. And the reason that's become really paramount for me is because I recognize now that when you have an opinion and you believe it matters, you should put it into the ether. You should put it back into the world, right? Because it does affect other people indirectly or directly, and it does form part of their thinking and shapes their attitudes and ideas. And so I strive to have something relevant to say and put it back into the world and contribute to shaping the direction of other people's thinking in order for the greater good.
Oh, that's really good. So, Chidi, was there a point, and this is where I'm trying to get to. Was there a point? Do you remember something defining that made you feel like, maybe I'll just do this thing? Like, how was that journey like for you? What was that journey like for you?
There was a specific point when it came to books. Absolutely. There was a turning point where I thought, I need to write a book, right? And so if you're interested in how that came about, I'll be happy to share that
Please do.
thinking. So in my career, right, my recent career, probably 7 years ago, I was working for Dell Technologies, a global IT tech company. And part of that role as an advisory consultant means engaging with C-suite leaders and talking about our tech stack and tech platforms and value creation using technology and transformation, all of that good stuff. And that really entailed global travel and public speaking to these C-suites, like the biggest leaders of companies in the world. And there was a gentleman, I'm going to give him a huge shout out. His name is Jeffrey Moore. He's an author. He's a very well known author, US based, but a globally renowned author. And he's seen really as sort of, I don't know if he reminds me of saying this, more of like the grandfather sort of like of IT sort of marketing consultancy. And so he wrote a book called Crossing the Chasm. And so in one of our engagements where we were doing a UK C-suite conference, we invited him to come to be a guest speaker for the 4 days or 3 days that we ran the expo. And I managed to have the privilege to share a stage with him. And we were, doing a great job on upselling our technology stack and upselling our services and whatnot. And it occurred to me the influence that Jeffrey Moore leveraged because of his books
Because of his books.
was insurmountable. The credibility that he has because of his years of experience and his thought leadership was phenomenal. I mean, this man is in his 70s, right? He's been around for a long time. And so it dawned on me to, to be close to sharing a platform similar to what he has. You have to build credibility. Right? You have to build credibility and thought leadership. And the most powerful and potent way to do that, I felt at the time, was what he did: write books, right? Write business books specifically that helps business leaders drive profitable, sustainable businesses, right? Year on year to be successful. And I thought, right, I don't have 40, 50 years of experience like he does,
That was where I was
right?
gonna come from, because I was like, isn't there this isn't there this thing, this thought that would usually creep in around the fact that what do I have to add to the conversation? If you go on Amazon and you put on, any topic, you'll find like thousands of books. How was that overcoming that for you? Was that even a fear for you?
To be honest, that wasn't really a fear for me at that point in time because, I've been professional for, I don't know, 18, 20 years or so, however long it was. I've got loads of experience. And so my experience is valuable, because it just is. It's valuable to whoever it's valuable to in that space in time. But also, as well, I think why that wasn't a reservation or fear was what we were, shall I say, selling at the time, innovation. We were doing some cutting edge stuff, man. We were doing some cutting edge stuff that was really at the forefront of what all companies needed in order to stay relevant. Doesn't matter what business you were. If you were incumbent, if you'd been around for hundreds of years or tens of years, you needed to remain relevant, and innovation was a way to do that. And we had this secret sauce. We had the key.
I
And
love
so
it.
we were sharing that with C-suite. So I thought, you know what, the platform is there. They're interested in the content. The thought leadership is there, right? The difference between Jeff and I is he's got a history of documenting this stuff and sharing that broadly. I should have a go and try something similar. And that's kind of my turning point, I guess.
Oh, amazing, amazing. So you write your first book. Yeah, you write your first book, and what did that lead on to for you? First of all, what was the book called?
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
wrote my first book on change management called Intelligent Change Management. I wrote that book specifically at the time, 6 or 7 years ago. I think it was 6 years ago. I can't remember exactly. Where change management was essentially the thing that was really prevalent for organizations
Mm-hmm.
to transform and become more relevant, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
And there weren't many books in the marketplace at the time.
Ah.
There were just a handful, by a few established professors, right, who are really bright consultants, but they don't have the underground, in the thick of
Hands
it,
on, yeah.
hands-on
Trenches,
experience,
yeah.
right? And that's where credibility comes in, right? I'm not talking theory, I'm talking first-hand experience. Avoid my mistakes, take my learnings,
Mm-hmm.
run with it, backed up with science and backed up with research, but this stuff works. And so I put that down on paper, got incredible response from it. And of course, it was a really hot topic at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the traction it gained, and also actually the incredible impact it had on those who applied the thinking in their own environments.
Okay.
And so I felt, okay, this has given me the confidence that I can write and I can articulate my opinions and my experiences, and it does have impact and can add value. And so that was really where the thought came in. But then actually I thought to myself, the first book, it's a great practical tool, but really this what I wanted to do is reach a more senior audience, right? Because the first book reaches everyone who's on the ground getting it done, right? It's a tool.
Mm-hmm.
The second book, I wanted to have a conversation with C-suites, because
So
that's
more
kind
around
of where,
strategy.
not so much specifically around strategy, even though the book is very strategically led, right? And so those who really kind of need to feel comfortable with strategic thinking, because that's kind of where it sits. But what I wanted to do with that second book, Purpose Driven Transformation, was to connect the C-suite executive with middle management and those underneath them. Because in my experience, there is a chasm between strategic intent, right, that the C-suite develop versus the middle management who've got to implement this and
And the
drive
foot
out the value
soldiers,
and drive
yeah.
out the result, right,
Mm-hmm.
and the benefits. And so I wanted to cross that bridge. And to cross that bridge, I wanted C-suites to understand that they are running 100 miles an hour, but the reality for the majority of the organization is something quite different. So
Mm-hmm.
the book was a tool to bridge that gap.
So, interrupting the podcast real quickly to bring you a short message from our sponsors, Linkage Assurance PLC. They're an insurance organization based in Nigeria that offer insurance services across a wide number of sectors. You want to check them out. They offer a great top notch service. So, they're particularly relevant for people who have business interests in Nigeria. So, a product I would like to highlight today is from their motor insurance category. So, in their motor insurance category, there's a third party insurance plus product that provides insurance covers for the third party vehicle if you were ever in an accident, as well as cover for your own vehicle as well at really affordable rates. You want to check them out and tell them that we sent you. Thank you very much. Now back to the podcast. Really interesting there. How did you then start speaking from there? So you've written this book, it's getting a lot of traction, and then you think to yourself, you know what? I might as well just start speaking too. How did that work for you?
Yeah, if we work backwards, so speaking was first, right?
Oh,
Via
speaking was first. Okay.
yeah, via working at Dell Technologies, I got to travel Europe and speak to C-suites, so that I already developed that muscle, right? That's my comfort zone, is speaking to senior leaders because they are incredibly strategic, which is kind of where my mindset, which is actually my core strength. They are compelled, the higher up, they're compelled by making a difference. Again, that deeply resonates with me. So I found myself mostly comfortable around those types of people anyway. So during those time at Dell, I felt very much at home in speaking to C-suite. The connection was there. It was a natural synergy there for me. So that was first. That gave me the confidence. I did a lot of speaking, even internally as well to the most senior folks as well. I did a lot of talks about the work we were doing and a lot of talks externally via the company in terms of the work that we were doing and how to move their businesses forward. So I already had that comfort and confidence. The book really, what it did was
Was just
create,
credibility.
unlock more
Yeah.
opportunities,
Opportunities
right?
for you.
Because the book provides this subject matter that specific audiences are interested in learning more about. And so the more books I have, the more topics I can talk about because it's just their platform, right? And so that's how it happened. The book continues to create interest for conversations and imparting experiences.
So you start with change management and then you then start to move into personal branding. So talk to us
So
about that.
yeah, so change management, transformation. I think there's a difference, right? Change management is about behavioral change. Transformation is about moving a company from A to B. It's a nuanced difference, but it's actually a critical difference. So I covered both sides: the psychology of getting people to change behavior, change management, and the tools and the ability to help organizations transform from state A to state B, right, in order to preserve their relevance and to continue to grow and be successful. Very different things, right? But they are complementary. So covered both sides of the angle, felt really happy about that. And then I decided it was time to take a slightly different turn. I didn't want to become one two-trick pony. I wanted to talk about something different, and that something different was, how do I empower employees or professionals in organizations to achieve their potential? Because not everybody's going to go and be an entrepreneur. Not everybody's going to go and start up their own business. Those who can and do, fantastic. But those who are in corporate environments or organizational contexts who want to get the most they can from that environment also need support, also need equipping, and also need to understand and master how to navigate the complexities of that environment. In addition, there is so much opportunity, there is so much knowledge, there is so much to be gained by being brilliant in your corporate environment to get to the very top of your career. right? You don't have to go outside of it if you don't want to. And so I wanted to speak into that, right? I felt there was just a gap. I wanted to speak into that. And one of the reasons I wanted to speak into that, I've got a 23-year-old son now. So when I was writing the book, I was thinking actually about him as well. I talked about legacy at the very beginning. How can I make sure that he feels equipped, right, to go into the world and be the best version of himself? What tools did I not have at his age
That he,
would be
that would
useful
be
for
useful.
him to prepare him to be the best version? And so building a personal brand is one of the ways to ensure, now more than ever actually, in the corporate context, that not only do you stand out, but you find ways to increase your market value in or outside of your organization, right? Achieve the success that you deserve on your terms, right? And always be sought after. I felt that knowledge is key for employees to be able to get to the next level of their career.
And this is the thing. Often people feel that it's either or. Like if you're building a personal brand, you are maybe an entrepreneur, you're doing something. People often don't think that there is the connection, as in you can actually have a corporate career and have an effective personal brand. Why do you think so, though?
It's a great question. I can only make assumptions about why that is. I think traditionally, brand building has always been associated with companies and corporations, right? Or startups. By the very nature, building brands is about selling a service to an external public audience. And so people have never, up until recent times, people haven't internalized that to say, how can I build my personal brand as an employee within my organization and outside of my organization in order to increase my market value? People have always got caught up in, I deserve a promotion because I've worked really hard. Can't they see that I'm sweating, I'm laboring, I'm doing all these long hours, but I'm not getting promoted? Or opportunities are not there for me. I'm going to leave the company and go into another environment where the opportunity is there, only to be confronted by the same challenges. And so 25 years of kind of corporate professional life has taught me that you need to think different, right? Apple built that slogan when they first came out. Think different. Think different about everything. Be entrepreneurial in yourself in terms of how you push your career forward. It's not just reserved for those who are selling their products or services, to the world. You are a product. You are a service. You are a brand. Whether you know it or not, you actually are. When you turn up for work every day, people have a perception of who you are, right? They have an understanding of what you bring to the table. Whether you have studied that, understood it, harnessed it or not, you have a brand, for good or for bad. And so the time is right now for employees to think about themselves as a brand. And really what that means at its core is recognizing that, like in a relationship, you have to keep yourself, you have to keep growing. You have to stretch yourself. You have to bring something new to the table. You don't want to be stale for your husband, for your wife, for your boyfriend, or for your girlfriend. You want to always surprise them with something new about yourself, something you've discovered, even if you've just been to a museum. Hey, I saw this great piece of art, or I saw this great musical, or read this great book. That's adding value to your relationship. How much more so in the corporate environment where it's so challenging? Redundancies is every 9 months or so, because they're looking at the talent pool, they're looking at what they don't have, they're trying to transform, they're looking at the skill sets within the organization, and they're like, we don't have X, Y, and Z. We need to make space for X, Y, and Z,
Need to make space, man.
right? And so it's the onus is actually upon the employee to
To
make sure that when that X, Y, and Z comes up, they're ready.
They're ready.
Uh,
So, Chidi, the thing is, I think people have this perception that when they start to do stuff outside, they're building this personal brand, then they may be looked upon as probably having a focus that is diverse divested from what they should be focusing on, and I think for a lot of people listening to this podcast today, that would be the thought process or the paradigm through which they view all of this. So what would you say about that?
That's an absolutely valid point. You are 100% right. What I would say is make sure you understand your company's employee policy,
Okay.
right? Because they may see it as a conflict of interest if you have a side hustle. So if you're trying
But
to,
is it really a side hustle? Because the way you've explained it, it's not a side hustle. It sounds like something that you actually need that benefits the company, but in a different way.
you're 100% right. There's two angles to it. There's the side hustle angle, right, which is building your personal brand so that you can launch into the marketplace with your own products or service. At which point you could be seen as a competitor. There's that side, and that's a real side, right? And then there's the side you're talking about, which is the side that we're focusing on today, which is about enhancing your value so that in your organization, outside of your organization, you remain
You
attractive
may
to your
relevant.
current employer and future employer, and you put yourself in a position of strength where you can negotiate your opportunities internally and externally, and negotiate your salary internally and externally. That's kind of what you and I landed on today.
Yes, yes. And that was why I asked the question around speaking in the inverse. So I know you had started talking about speaking in the organization and stuff, but what I thought in my head was, okay, you started speaking and then you wrote a book, and then that obviously gave you more credibility, quote and unquote, outside your immediate organization to then go out to then be speaking. So it's that thin line that I don't know if that's what you did, or if you are still in this corporate, framework in terms of when you speak. Do you do anything, outside your immediate corporate environment?
Great question. I have done. I have done. I think in my environment, I'm in a unique environment, right? I'm part of an organization that has key businesses. It's got a portfolio of businesses, and they're very different businesses, although related, connected by supply chain and marketing and technology. And so I've got an incredible fertile ground to extend and expand my network within my organization. Absolutely. However, I can, and I will, and I do speak where the subject matter, is connected to the stuff that I write about, because the book is out there, right? Everybody's celebrating the books. It's about supporting organizations leverage those insights to be successful. That continues to shine a positive spotlight in the environment that I'm in. So it's not frowned upon. However, I would advise others who are thinking similar to always make sure that their organization are supportive and it doesn't conflict with what you signed up for, because some organizations are concerned if you seem to have interests which are beyond your 9 to 5. They will have concerns about that. However, I think, and I'll go out on a limb saying this, for organizations that are forward thinking, that recognize that employees are assets, particularly where they are ambitious and where they stretch themselves, it's about working with those talents because they are a minority, and they shine a positive spotlight in terms of the types of talent you want in your organization. It's actually a positive PR, right? Where you have individuals, who either write or speak, or like yourselves have, really exciting professional platforms. Those individuals are incredible assets. And the modern workforce, the future workforce, I believe will embrace such people more and more and create a slightly higher level tier of value attached to those people.
Okay, so in terms of, thank you for that. So in terms of being able to create value, because that's essentially what we're talking about, right? Create value, find relevance, that cuts across, just one spare. Do you feel that, okay, is everyone an author? So if someone's listening to this today, regular 9 to 5 chap or lady, and you're thinking, oh, I like what Chidi is saying, but you know, have I got what it takes? How do I start in building this personal brand? What way, do you have? I know 3 step blueprint, 4 steps. Like, what should somebody do? What should they explore? If you don't know, if you can't be that, granular in terms of descriptive, in terms of what they should do, but what should they be thinking about um, in the near term as they consider this?
Yeah, great question. Firstly, not everybody is an author. In the same way, not everybody is a footballer, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody is a basketballer. That's just a fact. You've got to know what your niche is.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to know what your passion or what your strengths are. Like,
Mm-hmm.
start there. Those are your talents. Those are your gifts. You've got to be clear on that. If you don't know, you've got to do some exercises to discover what that is. And I talk about that in my book, Accelerate. But there's loads of content out there around building personal brands. So that's the first step. But ultimately, what I would say is this, because I really talked a lot to corporate professionals. What I would say is this: whatever stage you are in your career,
Mm-hmm.
whatever work you're doing, be do it do it well. Do it well, right? How often do you see, even in your own environment, people just not pulling their weight, right? How many people do you know that pull their weight so consistently that their name always comes up when there's a new project or a new program? Like, pull your weight, for God's sake, right? That's the first kind of that's the kind of first principle. Right? If there is,
That
if
has
there's
to be
kind
a
of like,
quotable quote. Pull your weight for God's sake.
I mean, seriously, right? Like years ago, I started my own business, right? During the dot-com scenario, and when the financial kind of crisis happened in 2008, the business folded. But my learning from that was it's hard to earn money, right? It's really hard to earn money when you're in the services business. Money does not come by easily. There's lots of uh, loopholes. There's lots of kind of hurdles you've got to jump. So when an employee employs you, an employer employs you, you they've hired you because you're bringing something to the table. So be outstanding, be present, be outstanding. When opportunities come, don't let yourself down. Don't let your boss down. Don't let your team down. Shine, shine and keep shining, because after a while, you will be spotted, right? Shine and be vocal about what your contribution, I must say. Be vocal, right? Don't
Be
be
vocal.
shy.
That's very important,
Be
isn't it?
vocal. Sing your praises. Record your successes. Tell anyone who's prepared to listen how great you are. Back it up with evidence, with data, right? I think that's probably the most important advice for anyone who has a job that wants to progress in that environment or any environment. Demonstrate your worth by being excellent in everything you're given to do. If you do that, you will progress. You will progress very quickly.
Amazing. I love that. I will remember that. It's etched to my mind now forever. Pull your weight for God's sake. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for that. I feel like just speaking to you, it's almost like um, you're talking, your voice is crisp, everything. You're just giving us all this, and no one would believe like you've been through any challenges at all, because obviously I've done my research on you. And I think you started off when you talked about, you grew up in Nigeria and stuff like that. But it'll be good to just kind of, talk about a little bit of who you were as a child and some of the, challenges that you have been through. Because a lot of times when people see people that are successful, that are doing great things, there's always a temptation to believe that, they've had everything handed to them on a platter of gold. They didn't have to hustle, they didn't have to do anything, they didn't have to overcome any challenges. They woke up like that. That's the Gen Z term. So it'll be good, if you can, just to give us the backstory, like the backstory of David in the wilderness. What is your backstory, Chidi?
Okay, great question, Tombra. You have done your research, and I think you're probing and digging here. But it's important to acknowledge where we come from, where we started, right? You've got an incredible backstory, but for me, I grew up in Nigeria. You wouldn't believe, but I sold soft drinks in the market, barefooted, carrying drinks on my forehead. Every morning, wake up, five or so, six, go to the river barefoot, walk several miles to fetch water to carry it back on my head to bring it back. My clothes were raggedy. My brother said in one of a book that he wrote that I looked like just something out of a squalor, like torn, just poverty, abject poverty. Nothing glorious about my childhood, my upbringing in Nigeria. It was painful. It was traumatic. It was yeah, you wouldn't wish that type of life on anyone. However, um, the past doesn't define who you are,
Come on
right?
now.
You draw strength from the past because everybody has a past, for good or for bad, but it doesn't define who you are unless you make it define who you are. Fortunately for me, when my mother brought me back to the UK at the age of 9, 10, I was able to go to school here, even though that was incredibly difficult. I faced huge amounts of challenges, not being able to speak English. I had a strong African accent, being teased because of my accent. People taking mick out of me because of my name and the size of my lips. It was, I went to pretty much schools which I was one of three black kids, and then I was an African who couldn't speak English, and so I was put into a corner. And one of the pupils, a 9-year-old girl with red hair, wonderful young girl, was teaching me, a 9-year-old boy, how to read. Right? Yeah, that was my introduction. So that's kind of a little bit of how I came through the ranks in this country. I managed to find something I was passionate about. We talked about, passion. I was very passionate about the creative arts. That was something that I was good at. Didn't do very well in any other subjects because I really had I was so far behind. But I had the innate ability to be creative. And so I rode that wave for as far as I needed to before I then was able to unlock other opportunities in my life. But
Was that
that's just
acting? Was that acting? Was that stage? Your
no,
creative
no, no.
arts. What was
The
that?
arts as in creative arts, drawing,
Drawing. Okay,
painting,
cool.
photography, making sculpture, those kind of things that
Mm.
African parents don't find valuable, right? Stuff that they were like, "What are you
So
doing?
what are you really doing? What are you really going to be doing with your
Why are
life?
you
I get
wasting your
that.
time? Why are you not
I
a
get
doctor?"
that.
Right? My mom wouldn't speak to me for a few weeks when I told her I wanted to like go into the arts, creative arts. She wouldn't speak to me for a while. Anyway, the Nigerian story was a pretty tough childhood, very tough upbringing, but that didn't define me, right? I
Mm.
think I allowed the opportunities that came in front of me, and even created my own opportunities. To be honest with you, right? That's
Tell us
what
about
defines
that.
me.
Tell us about that. Creating your opportunities.
The I think it connects to what I mentioned earlier in terms of wherever environment you find yourself, pull your weight, God damn it, right? Do your very best. Um, be excellent in what you do, because when you're consistent, people start to depend on you, start to rely on you. You build your own personal brand, and as one who's reliable, dependable, can deliver. And so I leveraged that to continue to create opportunities for myself. I think that's probably a secret sauce. Whatever opportunity is given to you, be exceptional, and it will lead to other opportunities because you make yourself invaluable, you make yourself an asset. And real assets you don't want to get rid of. You continue to give them more responsibilities and you continue to grow them because ultimately they're going to benefit you as well.
Mm, I love it. I love it. Chidi, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I love how you speak consistently on this making yourself an asset. And I want us to break this down in practical terms. You come into an organization, no one knows you, you're just a regular new chap who's joined. What does it take to make yourself an asset? want, if someone's listening to this and they want to really understand, what are the 3, 4, 5 things that they should be doing on a consistent basis to transform into this really, really relevant member of staff?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it has a really easy answer. Don't do work that doesn't connect with your passion, doesn't connect with your drive, doesn't connect with your purpose. Don't do it. Because you can't fake it. They say fake it till you make it. You can't fake being exceptional at something you hate.
Oh
Right?
my
You
God,
just can't
I'm
do it. You're
having a
starting.
massive, my head is popping right now. I'm like, what? Because people feel like, you know what? It's a really, really interesting thing we're talking about. People feel like your job is your job. Do you see what I mean? It's not about liking or not liking it. It's about what puts food on the table. So you've got an interesting spin on it, which is you should be doing your job, but your job should be, you should be passionate about your job. Tell us about that.
Yeah, right. It's not always easy to get to the point where you love what you do. However, if you've had the benefit of going through the educational system and you've made a conscious decision to transfer what you've spent years learning in the educational context into a professional setting, i.e., you've learned medicine, you become a doctor. There's a connectivity there in terms of transference of passion into a professional context. I think the challenge for many people is that if they are not doing as a career what they're interested in, I think fundamentally that's where they're on the back foot. They will never get to the top. Just the stars are not aligned, right? The stars are not aligned. You have to, in my opinion, you have to be in an environment that already you have a head start. That strategic advantage, that competitive advantage, what is that for you? Like, for me, I'm fundamentally very good at organizing. I'm fundamentally very good at planning. I can plan the life out of anything, right? I can only write these 4 books because I'm incredibly structured, very, very organized. I can defer gratification till the cows come home. I can achieve everything that I want because I have an innate ability to plan and organize fundamentally. And so everything that I do in my work also leans on that strength. I'm also very strategic. So there's a lot of combination of skill sets that I have that is leveraged and celebrated. And so I'm already set up to win.
I love it. Love the conviction in which you say this. Like, I was born a
Right?
winner.
Right? I'm like you have to do that deep analysis work. You and I talked earlier about the C-suite conversation. At a strategic level, I can engage at that level. At an operational level, those who are middle management, the doers, I can engage because of the organizational kind of executional mindset. I can engage. So I can engage both kind of levers. And so I know that about my strength. So I'm very comfortable and very happy in any environment corporately because it plays to my strengths. So I'm going to win. I'm going to win. The challenge for folks, many folks, right, is that they're in environments that's not leveraging their competencies. They're not leveraging their capabilities. They're actually trying really hard to do a function that's not really in their heart. So how are they going to win? Right? How
So
are they going to win?
in that scenario, would you say literally stop? Don't it because from what I'm hearing you say, from what I'm inferring from what you're saying, look, standing out, being relevant, being at your best is literally the ultimate priority. So if you feel that you're on the back foot in whatever you're doing, literally, would you say stop and then try and see if you can then find something else? Obviously, in a way that is sensitive to financial constraints and commitments and all of that. But are you saying, I'm just trying to gauge the level of importance you place on being at the top. If you are not in a context that allows you do that, are you saying change context?
I think what I'm saying is know where you are today and know where you want to get to next year, the year after, the year after that. there has to be a sequences of steps to get there. It will be irresponsible for me to say to anyone just stop. That's not practical for many people. Like to your point you made, you have responsibilities. But what I would encourage folks to do, which is the hard bit that nobody really wants to do, and I provide some tools in that in the book Accelerate that I wrote, is how can you get from A to B to C to D and ultimately end up to your destination that leverages all your expertise. I didn't jump from where I started off to where I am today overnight. It's taken me 25 years of working, but at some point I had to think about where do I want to get to and what do I need to get there. And sometimes you kind of have to sit tight where you are but still perform. But you've got to have a plan. The unfortunate thing is many people don't have a plan, a viable plan to get to their goal. And when I say a plan, I'm talking actually about sequences of steps to get to your goal. A plan isn't, I'll do this for 2 years and then magically something miraculously is going to happen for me. It's I'm doing this, but I'm also edging closer to where I want to get to by making sacrifices, by doing stuff for free, by volunteering, by, supporting, being a support act, by being around people who are doing it, by talking to the right people, by lending my expertise, taking incremental steps towards that goal. That's that journey that I think people often don't know how to do or don't really think about committing to in order to ultimately get to where, they're going to be essentially at the front foot and be kind of the most valuable asset for their strength.
So good. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so just as we start to wind down on the podcast, I want you to talk about, if you can, just share what your thoughts are about legacy. And I know we touched on it earlier, but why is all of this important to you? And just to get a sense from your perspective, why is being legacy minded important?
Yeah, I think this is one of the most important questions I think in today's podcast. Legacy matters for. I'll give you a brief story. So during that whole George Floyd incident, right, where we all sat during the COVID period, in front of social media, TV, whatever, bored to death, and we saw this poor man, the way he was treated. That impacted all of us, right? That was collective trauma. And for me, my response to that was, what can I do, right, to make this world slightly better? What can I do? My sphere of influence is my work and my family, right? But through my books, I can reach slightly broader audience. And so we talked earlier at the very beginning about if you have thoughts, if you're a thought leader and you have opinions, put it out into the ether because it's going to impact somebody and it's going to affect how they see the world. So for me, it's about speaking up. It's about sharing my perspective, my opinions about the world, how I see the world, my value systems, because it will resonate with somebody. Hopefully somebody that is in a position of leadership and authority that can affect other people's lives and implement some of my strategies to create a better condition and environment and a fair environment for those who work for them. And so that's one element of legacy, right? Making sure you're sharing your values in the world, but living up to your values as well. The second aspect is, what example am I leaving for my two sons? What examples am I giving my two sons? Because I don't want them to be excuse makers. I don't want them to be making excuses about why they can't progress in life. I want them to say, my dad has left me some tools, right? Some strategies, some techniques I can apply to be successful. But in addition to that, I want them to also think about how can they help other people? How can they, make a difference to others as well, so that collectively we can leave this earth, right, slightly better than what we inherited. And so I feel a responsibility in myself towards that. And when I say legacy, I don't mean it's not an ego thing, because legacy is often associated with being very wealthy and you can leave these great, incredible wealth. But actually, for me, legacy is about leaving a value system and changing, impacting lives for the positive, so that people can strive towards, not being so selfish, so self-centered, so kind of shallow, but thinking about how they can make the human condition slightly better. That's the type of legacy that interests me. And so the book is a great platform and a great conversation to do that. But equally, how I carry myself in my work environment also speaks about my character, my values, and also builds legacy too. Because people are seeing that I uphold the value systems that are important to me and I stand by them even at my personal expense, right? That creates a kind of a challenge in people's minds as to why they're not doing the same. Why are they so fickle, right? Why are they so easy to change with the wind? Why are they not standing up for the right things? And so somebody has to set examples of sacrifice and impact. And I can't excuse myself from that. I have to be a part of that solution.
And it's a delicate dance, also, isn't it? Between being that, maintaining your value system, and also being human. Would you say
Also being,
human?
it is. And again, I would say, what do you mean by also being human?
Also being human, being able to see that, being like not being perfect every time, being accommodating other people in areas where they're not necessarily strong. But this might be another podcast totally.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, we're in the realm of being authentic here. Look, nobody has all the answers. No one is perfect. I think part of this whole journey is about allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, allowing ourselves to be authentic, and that's an area which we didn't touch upon, but maybe another podcast. But that's really important that we take strides to be consistent in our character. Like the people we are at home should be the people we are at work, and if we can't be that person we are at home at work, then the challenge is to bridge that gap, right? Because ultimately we want to be real. Like you and I, we're doing our very best in this podcast to be real. We want to be real because we connect by being real. And so wearing a facade or a mask or a persona doesn't allow us to be real, and it doesn't cut through. If we want to touch lives, we have to show our dirty laundry, some of it, right? Because people then can relate.
Yeah,
I'm
people
not,
will
there's no way
connect.
I'm perfect. All this thing that we've said today, I want your listeners to understand. I am a work in progress. I don't have all the answers. I am just like everybody else trying to do their best, right? I've got some tools that I've acquired over 25 years that's allowing me to sharpen my thinking. I'm a bit more aggressive about what I want to do in parts, not in every area, but I'm full of flaws and contradictions and mistakes, and I'm trying to get better each day, and definitely a work in progress.
I love it. I love it. I think that's a real balancing thing, and and the final thing that just come to my mind actually is just around urgency. Do you feel a sense of urgency in terms of just being here and what you feel you're called to do?
I do. I have to be honest. I'm nearly 50, right? And
Oh,
so
you don't look it.
black don't crack, right, as they say, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
unprofessional. Um,
That's absolutely fine. My listeners are real people, man. Let's just say it as it is.
yeah, I do feel that urgency. I really do. I feel there isn't a day that doesn't go by where I feel time is not infinite. Am I making the best use of my time? And that's probably why I push myself as much as I have done, is because time is not infinite. And so I want to do as as much as I can to leverage my competencies to create impact. And so I feel, my wife will tell you this, Rima will tell you this, is like, I'm always doing something. I don't know how to rest, and that's not a good sign. If I'm not, if I'm not writing a book, I'm writing an article. If I'm not writing an article, I'm fixing the house. If I'm not, I'm doing a. I have to. My mind just has to do something. But the undertone of that driver is I want to learn as much as I can. And I want that learning to create as much value as I can before my time is up. And so I do feel that urgency. I really do. And it's an ever present sense of urgency as well.
Whoosh. Thank you so much for bringing all of yourself today. It was such an insightful conversation. I have no doubt my listeners are going to be thoroughly blessed. I would love for you to close us out on the podcast. Speak to one person. Speak to one person as you close us out that just summarizes what you've been talking about today.
Great. And thank you again, Tombra, for this incredible platform. I know
Welcome.
you're doing so much to get your platform out there. You're touching lives. Even if you change the life of one, that's one that wasn't changed
Yeah.
before. So thank you for your service that you're doing for your community.
Yeah.
I think if I'm to say something to speak to one person out there, as you've heard from my story, look, I grew up barefooted in Nigeria selling drinks on my forehead, right? I was told by my auntie that you're never going to be anything. You're just going to wash plates in my restaurant for all your life. And I believed it. Right? As a young child, I believed I was never going to be anything. That was my start in life. And so if that isn't your start in life, you've already got an advantage. Right? If your start in life is that you grew up with one or two parents, I was an orphan, right? So I didn't have my parents up until I was about 9 years old. So if you had parents, you already have a head start. You already have a head start. If you had 3 meals a day, dude, you had a head start, right? And so take every opportunity given to you and bring your best self. Sometimes bring your best self means go and learn something, go and practice something, be comfortable with failing, get good at failing and fail fast, fail forward. Eventually you're going to get better. And if you keep pressing in, if you keep leaning in, if you keep challenging yourself to grow and not shy away from growth, you will make, incredible progress in your life and in your career. And so fundamentally, persevere, push forward, don't take no for an answer. Failure is not an option, right? You will succeed, you will get there, but it's not easy. You have to defer gratification, right? Put off that pleasure, put it off, right, for as long as you can, and the reward will be there on the other side.
On the other side. Fantastic. Mic drop moments, several mic drop moments in that. Thank you so much. This has been such a treat having this conversation with you. And yeah, we wish you all the very best. And where can we find your books? And yeah, please feel free to drop those details.
Yeah,
We'll
check
put
me
them
out
in
on
the show notes
Amazon.
as well. But go
Yeah,
on, Amazon.
chidiameke.com, ChidiAmeke, chidiameke.com, my website. You see more about me on there. Amazon, if you search my name, my books will come up there as well. So,
Fantastic.
and yeah, it's all available for you as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so, so much.
Cool. Thank you.